welcome back to another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by thehoosier.com of the On3 Sports Network. Happy to be with you as always. Happy post-Father's Day weekend to all the dads out there. Got to experience my first ever Father's Day, and it was a very enjoyable day with my family and my daughter, and I am just so overjoyed to have my daughter Daisy around. And it is, being a dad has been one of the most rewarding things, even in these short, she's 9 weeks old, 10 weeks old, something like that. I know she's over 2 months old now. The time has been flying by, and but I've enjoyed every second of it, minus the lack of sleep. But hey, we make it work, and that's just part of life, right? When you're a parent, you got to make sacrifices, and when you're a parent to a newborn, that is one of the primary sacrifices that you end up making. It is the lack of sleep. But hey, it is what it is. But hey, welcome back to the show. It's going to be definitely a lot shorter of a show today than what I normally do. I'm recording this late on Sunday. Had a lot of Father's Day stuff going on throughout the day, as you would have imagined. But I didn't want to just scrap a show altogether. I want to talk about the NBA Finals, the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, of course. Drew Rosenberg is going to pop in here with me here very shortly. We're going to talk about the remaining games. Will the Pacers go the distance of the Thunder? What do we think about Game 4 and the late kind of choking of Indiana in the final or in the fourth quarter? So you'll hear all of our thoughts on that here in just a moment. And then really after that, we're just going to call it a day, just because, late show or a late recording, I should say. And then I got to go to sleep and get ready to get up at 3:30 in the morning. And this, by the time this thing will be out at 7, I'll already be hard at work in the lovely business of radio and News Radio 840 WHAS. We're doing that early as always. But enough about me, enough of the blabbering. We'll go ahead and get into it, talk some NBA Finals, and we'll get into some more stuff. Hopefully next week we can have a more regular episode. But hey, I already looked ahead. If the Pacers get to Game 7 with the Thunder, Game 7's on a Sunday, meaning I'll be recording Monday afternoon to react to the NBA Finals, the way things play out. So, but who knows? We may not even get to a Game 7. And again, we'll just have to see how things play out. But let's go ahead and get into the thick of our conversation. Welcome in Drew Rosenberg of thehoosier.com, and we'll talk all things Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals right now. Joining me once again from thehoosier.com, the Talking About the Hoosiers podcast host, staff writer, whatever you want to call him. He's a jack of all trades. He is one Drew Rosenberg, and we're here to talk more about the ongoing NBA Finals between the Pacers and the Thunder. Drew, welcome back to In Touch with Indiana Sports, my friend.
Thanks for having me, John. I mean, it feels like perfect time. Game 4, I guess we're recording Sunday, so tomorrow or tonight.
Game 5 got a Game 5. Yeah, I remember last time we chatted. Yeah. We thought that, or we knew that we'd be through 4 games, and one of our big, I guess, kind of talking points was, man, I hope the Pacers are making this series competitive. Hopefully this isn't over by 4 games. And we're all knotted up at 2. And I don't think we thought that they would be here the way in which they have gotten here. I mean, we've seen more heroics from Tyrese Halliburton. We've seen another late game choke in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. We've kind of seen it all through 4 games, I believe, through these NBA Finals. And I guess we'll just start with, what are kind of your impressions on how the 4 games have played out so far?
Yeah, the Pacers, there was some concerns about how do they match up against the Thunder. This Thunder team is all year, it's been how historically good they are. A lot of people thought, including myself, the Thunder would win this series, and the Pacers have, kind of showed that dog, that fight that they've, that's kind of built their identity around. And, the lights aren't too bright. They play the same way, no matter if it's a regular season game, playoff game, NBA Finals game, it doesn't matter. And, we talk about in the NBA, battle tested. You got to go through the trials and tribulations to get to the top. The Pacers last year, we saw them lose a bunch of close games, and they've learned from that. We see it Game 1, they steal a game in OKC and then flip the series on its head from the very start. And yeah, Game 4, they blew a great chance to go up 3-1. But this is a Pacers team. I don't think that's going to be the end of them. I don't think it's going to be one of those things like, oh, that was our chance to win it. It's over now. This team is still so much in this series. I mean, it's 2-2, obviously. And, a lot of people, I think the odds makers have Thunder as quite big favorites currently. But the way this series is played out, it's really anyone's game. And the way the Pacers play, they play that fast, high-octane offense, and they throw bodies at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's a tough matchup for the Thunder, and it's been so fun to watch Rick Carlisle and Mark Daigneault kind of duel back and forth.
Yeah, all it really takes is, and when we saw this, it's been a while, but we saw it against Cleveland. All it takes is one game for Indiana to get hot and score more points than you ever would imagine them to. It doesn't matter if it's at home or away. And so I do think I agree with you on the front that because of the style of play that Indiana has, they're going to be in any game no matter what. Sometimes that style can shoot themselves in the foot, especially if you don't have the right pieces on the floor at the right time. But I think there's just something about the fact that these Pacers, with them having this underdog mentality and the fans kind of, what's the best word to say? I guess just kind of taking on that personality as well. I think a lot of people kind of saw Game 4 as like, man, if they don't get this and go up 3-1, it's going to be difficult. But I mean, who's to say Indiana can't go on the road and win once again? I think up until, the series is far from over, like you mentioned, but in every series they played before they got to the NBA Finals, they've almost looked better as the road team. You can maybe argue that wasn't the case with the Bucks, but in the other two series, Indiana, for the most part, looked really good in their road matchups. And who's to say they won't look the part in Game 5?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I want to say the Pacers have 3 road losses in the playoffs. It was at the Knicks, at Milwaukee, and at Thunder. They've only lost on the road to each team once. It's, the road dog mentality. They fight, it doesn't matter. It seems like Tyrese Halliburton, when he's on the opponent's floor and has a chance to be the villain, he plays his best basketball. And, that's all you can want from your superstar, from your guy. I'm using that word. I don't care what people say. I think there's more than a lot of people say, oh, there's only a couple superstars in the league. Tyrese Halliburton has shown everyone that he's a superstar. He can be a little corny at times, but when the brights are lightest, he makes plays down the stretch. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP, but if I have one shot to win a game in this series, it's Tyrese Halliburton. That's the guy I want having the ball right now at this moment in time.
I got to say, I want to go back and talk specifically about Game 4 for a second. What went wrong down the stretch? I know for me, the biggest thing that stood out was missed free throws. And I remember when the game was still in favor of Indiana and a few guys were missing some free throws. I was like, this can come back to haunt them, but I wasn't really convinced that they were going to be put in a position to where it was going to bite them in the butt. But of course, that ended up being the case. Ben Mathurin, I think, missed 3 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And that was when Indiana was already down. And there's numerous other things that you can mention as well on why this team kind of let the lead slip away. But I'm curious from your perspective, what was kind of the catalyst that allowed OKC to come back in Game 4?
Yeah, it was OKC's defense. All year it's been about their defense. Their defense has kind of been their calling card. And when it mattered most, back against the wall, OKC really locked in, forced some turnovers down the stretch. I don't have the full fourth quarter stats, but the Pacers offense, the high-octane, explosive Rick Carlisle offense, they were held to 17 points in that quarter, and a lot of those 17 came, kind of garbage time with the game already away. And it's the Thunder kind of got the Pacers out of a rhythm. The Pacers had been getting to their spots, getting consistent looks all game, all series, and that, fourth quarter, we really didn't see that. And when the Pacers offense is struggling, the Pacers defense isn't bad, but it's not, an elite defense that can keep them alive when their offense goes quiet.
So as we get ready for Game 5, and we know what both teams are all about. We know that it's one high octane offense versus a high octane defense. If Indiana is going to pull off the upset, the first time they did it in Game 1, they didn't necessarily play well throughout the entirety of the game. They just kind of caught Oklahoma City sleeping in the final several minutes of the fourth quarter and had, of course, another opportunity for late game heroics from Tyrese Halliburton. I don't necessarily expect that to play out anymore in this series. I'm not saying it can't happen, of course, but what's what's likely the difference if Indiana is able to kind of, not even kind of, but come away with a Game 5 win? I mean, it's probably easier. It's easy to say whatever we want, right? We know that if I already mentioned it earlier, if the Pacers get hot and they're just scoring and they're not affected by the environment at all, that's something that could definitely be a factor. But what say you? What's something that maybe we are or aren't expecting when it comes to Game 5 if Indiana's going to win?
Yeah, I think the two things I look at, you got to take care of the basketball. The Thunder want to take force turnovers. The Pacers are one of the best teams in the league at taking care of the basketball. Tyrese Halliburton especially. 5 turnovers from him, for a lot of players, 5 turnovers isn't the worst number, but Halliburton's the guy that typically hovers around, 0, 1 to 2 turnovers a game. When he has 5, they're making it difficult on him. So Indiana has to protect the basketball because OKC's offense has been inconsistent at times throughout this series and throughout the playoffs. And when you're letting them get easy runouts in transition, they get into a rhythm where they are so hard to stop. So first off, taking care of the basketball, but also the bench. The bench has been very good for the Pacers this series. Ben Mathurin has had a big game. Obi Toppin was great in Game 4. TJ McConnell has had some big moments. I think the winner of the bench has gone 3-1 in this series.
Okay.
So it's winning those bench lineups because I know Obi Toppin, he played well, but was a -15 in his 29 minutes. Alex Caruso was a +14, tied for team high in the Thunder in that game off the bench. So winning that bench matchup is so big in this series because both teams, as I drop a charger, I don't know if that was caught, but both teams have such depth that they make them so hard where you can't just, go to your 5 guys like the Knicks like to do so often where they just play the same 5. The Thunder and Pacers are so deep that, 6, 7, 8, those guys have to contribute and have to win those minutes.
One thing I hope this doesn't come off as a hot take. It's not meant to be. But one thing I feel like with Tyrese Halliburton, and I noticed it specifically in Game 4, I feel like there are several moments like Tyrese Halliburton he always comes out aggressive. But I feel like in the midway points, specifically the second and third quarters of each game, it feels like he sometimes gets into a lull and you don't really see him put his foot or at least try to put his foot on the gas until late in the fourth quarter. Yep. Do you feel like Halliburton needs to be more aggressive or do you think is he playing to his strengths? I know he's always going to be a pass first point guard, but I think when you're somebody who is an emerging superstar the way that he is, I think there's more moments where he kind of needs to take control. He doesn't need to just shoot up dumb shots because he has done that. And I thought he did that last game a little bit as well. But I think he needs to take control and realize he is more than likely at least the second best player on the floor. There's probably moments where he's the best player on the floor, but at the very least, he's the second best player on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. Look at Game 4. He's had 7 shots in the fourth quarter. The rest of the game, he had 8. It's one of those things. That's been the biggest issue with Tyrese Halliburton throughout his career. It's finding the moments and picking spots, when to attack, when to look to get guys involved. And just because he is looking to attack, looking to get downhill, does not mean he can't pass. When he's getting to the rim and kicking out, that's when the Pacers are at their best. When Tyrese Halliburton is getting the assists, but him looking to score and looking to attack makes the Pacers such a different team to defend. And it's why they're so good down the stretch in fourth quarters when he is looking, with that killer mentality. And obviously, he doesn't need to take 7 shots every single quarter. If he adds up to 28 shots, it's a lot of shots. But finding the balance where it's not, 1 shot here and then I'm not going to shoot for the next 6 minutes. It's finding that balance and really, staying consistent throughout his approach. Because Halliburton is a pass-first player and he needs to be because that's, getting the Pacers involved. They have so much talent around him and so many shooters. But he also needs to understand, hey, there's moments when the offense is in a lull. I need to go and get mine.
Do you think there's room for Thomas Bryant to have another big game? I feel like he's been a pretty non-factor. I don't even know if we've seen him participate much in some of these NBA Finals games. Is there room for the former IU star to make some noise in this NBA Finals?
Yeah, I don't see it. I think it's just a tough matchup for him with Chet Holmgren. It's it's not like where the Knicks had blanking on their Mitchell Robinson, where he someone that isn't really a threat to shoot and space the floor and really put the ball on the floor. Thomas Bryant in space against Chet Holmgren isn't a matchup Rick Carlisle wants. And I think it's why we didn't see Thomas Bryant in game 4. And I think that's going to be a trend that kind of continues.
Do you think this is something that was specific, I think, in game 4? And I heard the announcers talking a lot about this, and it wouldn't surprise me if we continue to see this as the playoffs move, or as the finals move forward. But the chippiness in game 4, and we saw a lot of it with Obi Toppin specifically. Do you think as this series continues, do you think you continue to see these teams, just get more physical with each other, more technical fouls? It's not always. I think it was Richard Jefferson who was on the call. I think he had mentioned that if you're not getting a certain amount of technicals, he didn't necessarily give a number, but he's like, if you're not getting technicals, you're not playing hard enough. When in my mind, I hear somebody say that, and I'm like, well, if you're getting a technical, you're giving points to the other team and the ball back. So I guess I understand what you're saying about playing hard, but you're also not giving your team much of an advantage, especially in close game situations when that type of stuff happens. But do you foresee, more physical activity in these next couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You're 4 games in now. These teams are very familiar with each other. These guys, especially the matchups, like Nembhard versus Shea, like they've been going at it now for 4 games. And for years before, I mean, Nembhard's a Canadian guy. Him and Shea have a long history together. And Nembhard's not scared of the moment. These guys want to get at it. They're playing for an NBA championship. This is their dream for most of them. It's the chippiness. Once it starts, it's not going to stop. It's only going to get worse. And I point to a guy on the Pacers, because the Pacers play with an edge, and you look across, the guys who are on the floor for them. There's not like someone you point to and like that's the reason. But James Johnson, who does not play for them, I think plays such a big role for the Pacers, and people don't really talk about it as much as I think they should. People remember those old Heat teams of the last 5 years with Udonis Haslem on the bench. James Johnson is that for the Heat. For those who don't know, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen the kickboxing MMA stuff with James Johnson. Every single year they came out, which NBA player do you not want to fight? And he always wins in a landslide in the vote. But the thing is, having a guy like that on the bench behind you, it gives you an edge. Like Tyrese Halliburton, Nembhard, these are younger players, and they're not afraid to, talk. Like they talk, they're loud, they're boisterous. You don't do that if you don't have someone behind you that is going to be there if you need it. And having James Johnson there gives him that extra confidence. And then you see Halliburton in his post-game interviews. James Johnson is always there. I don't know if you've picked up on this. He's always watching.
I've noticed that. He's
like the last one to leave the court with Halliburton every single time. He's just waiting with his guy, and he's kind of like the bodyguard almost if you see him. And it's very fun. It's a funny relationship because James Johnson gives them that edge even without playing it at all in the finals.
Something you said made me think of this. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, right now, he's the MVP of the league, best player in the NBA currently. He doesn't really give off kind of like that hateable player, the way that you used to get with like a LeBron James or even a Giannis, that type of thing. Is this just because I'm not as familiar with him being the best player in the league? He doesn't seem like he's someone who really gets in everybody's face. And maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention. But to me, he doesn't seem like he's not your typical hateable superstar, in my opinion.
Yeah. I will say, I disagree with the best player in the league take MVP. I'm not going to get into it, but
okay.
No,
who do you think then?
I think it's Jokic. I think Nikola Jokic.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like Shai's personality, it's pretty likable. People, they like to use the word aura.
He's very even keeled. Like I want to not like him, but I can't not like him.
I think the thing that people really don't like is how he plays. And, they call the foul baiting, and he draws a lot of fouls. And the way he plays, it's not the most – people like to use the word ethical hoops, and it's not the most ethical basketball. But the way the rules are in the NBA, he knows, hey, if your arm's in here and I just hook it real quick and go up with a shot, I'm going to get the foul. And it sucks. It's not great basketball. But at the same time, he's so good at it, and it works. He won the MVP. They're 2 wins away from winning an NBA championship with him doing it. So he's not going to stop unless the rules change. And people want to blame him. And it's not the best thing to watch. It's the same thing with what
Jalen Brunson, I feel like, does the same crap too.
Brunson as well. And it's like, it's not the most fun thing to watch, but they're so good at it. They manipulate the rules. And they're so talented at it, even though it's not the most fun basketball. Until the NBA changes the rules, nothing's going to change with it.
Yeah.
But that's like that's the thing people hate about Shea. And I mean, I'm not the biggest Shea Gilgeous-Alexander fan because of that. He's such a talented player that he doesn't need to do it. But then again, I mean, if you can get 10, 12 free throws a night doing it, why wouldn't you?
Let's go ahead and talk more big picture stuff here as, game 5 starting or taking place tonight. I'll start with this question now. Do you think that the Pacers need to win this game to potentially go the distance and even win the entire thing here? Or can they lose and find a way to bounce back in both game 6 and game 7 to win the entire thing?
No, I think if they lose game 5, I don't think it's over. I mean, Pacers can win on their home court. If you win on your home court and you get it back to game 7, OKC, I mean, you and I both know anything can happen in a game 7. And the Thunder, I think the Thunder are more. I think game 7 benefits the Pacers a lot more than it does the Thunder. I think the Thunder want to take care of business in game 5 than end it in 6. I just think with the Pacers' high octane offense, the way they shoot the 3 ball, the Pacers are a team that could come in and explode and score 120, 130, shoot 50% from 3. I don't know if the Thunder have that offensive switch that they can just shut a game, can just take over a game like that. Their switch is on the defensive end where they can, as we saw in the fourth quarter of game 4, they can shut a team down defensively.
Do you think the pressure, since you mentioned that a game 7 would favor the Pacers, even though it's in OKC, do you think part of that is because the pressure will be on Oklahoma City to deliver a game 7 win?
Yeah, I think big time. It's, this OKC team, despite them not having, won a title before, everyone's kind of crowned them. They got crowned probably 2 weeks ago, it felt like. They had a historically good regular season. They won 68 games. All the metrics, classified them as one of the greatest teams of all time before they've even won a title. And, they played a Pacers team that not many gave a chance. The odds makers gave the Thunder, were huge favorites to win the series. The Pacers, I think the 4 seed in the East, it was like, easy run. A lot of people wanted to point to it's an easy ride. And, I think whether it's true or not, if the Thunder don't win this series, people are going to look at it as a choke. And I think having that kind of in the back of your head, despite having never won a title, it adds another level of pressure. People, the Pacers, it's like they're kind of playing with house money at the same time. If they don't win a championship, no one's going to be like, dang, they like should have won that. Like, yes, this is the best chance they've had ever. But at the same time, if, in December, even a month ago, if I told you the Pacers were in this position, a lot of people wouldn't believe it.
If the Pacers were to pull this off, win the NBA title, where would this rank amongst like the biggest upsets to come out of nowhere and win? I think I talked about this with either you or Tyler Smith a couple of weeks ago. But there's only one other 4 seed has ever been in the NBA Finals. I don't even know if they won. I think it was the Boston Celtics. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I can't remember who it was. You would know more than I would. You're a Celtics guy. But
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's up there with the greatest, upset and like greatest surprise champion in history. I mean, yes, the Pacers went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but even though there were some very close games, and a lot of Celtics fans know that, I mean, it was a closer series than the sweep kind of indicates. It was still a sweep, and there was still a big difference. I think it would go down like the equivalent for putting it in football terms. I think it would be up there with the 2007 Giants beating the Patriots.
Wow. I think that's a really good comparison. Actually, I like that.
Like this Thunder team is historic. If they win a title, they're going to go down as one of the best teams of the modern era. And if they don't, this Pacers team is going to go down as one of the most fun teams ever.
And I think people will look back, and whether they win or not, winning will just add a different level to this legacy. But just the run that Tyrese Halliburton has, like, I don't think that's something that will ever be replicated. Like, it's one thing to have multiple game-winning shots in a playoffs, but to have at least one in every series by the same player, it's something that, again, I just don't think. I mean, anytime it happened, the second time or the third time that it happened, we were more surprised than the last time because it's already so improbable that shots like that happen even once. And so for it to happen 4 different times against every team that they played, it's already insane that happened. But to cap it off with the potential NBA championship, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton will go down in not just NBA lore, but in professional sports for eternity. He'll be one of those rare types of guys where he did something and won a title that will more than likely never happen again, I would think.
Yeah, he's had 4 or 5 moments you look to and you're like, damn, that is a moment, the highlight of someone's career. He's had 4 or 5 of those in one playoff run. It's the things he is doing is unbelievable. If he's able to cap it off with a championship, it will be one of the best individual playoff runs in the history of sports, much less the NBA. And it's Halliburton whether they lose the next 2 games, win the next 2, win in 7, lose in 7, whatever happens in this series, Halliburton is a Pacers legend forever. He's in the Reggie Miller conversation. You could even argue he's the best Pacer of all time already based off this run. What he's doing in the best, and it's crazy to say. And obviously, I do think it's Reggie. I'm not going to make that argument, but there is a real argument to make. If they win the championship,
if he wins, I think it's case closed. It's case closed. You can almost say it's case closed, but I mean, either way, Reggie lost in 6 to the Lakers. Pacers might lose in 6 to OKC. You're in the same boat at that point. So
he's 25. He was born in 2000.
How old was Reggie Miller whenever the Pacers went on their run? Do we know?
I'm not sure.
Quick research here on the show, and then I'll ask my final question. We'll get out of here.
What year was their finals run? Was it 90?
The year 2000.
2000? He was 34.
Oh my gosh! So he was he was in the later portion of his career. I wouldn't have known that. Wow. All right, last question. How do you see the rest of the series going? Who's winning? How many games are we going here?
I hate that I'm doing it. I'm gonna stick with my original prediction. I hate it, but because I'm rooting for the Pacers. I am as a basketball fan, as a sports fan. I am rooting for the Pacers. I said on this show, what was it, 3 weeks ago? I said Thunder in 6. I'm sticking with it. I think the Thunder take care of business in 6. Game 4 felt like it could have been a turning point with the way the Thunder closed that game out. I hope I'm wrong, but we've seen it. The Pacers, that offense, Tyrese Halliburton, they can. I don't want to even say steal a game because they've shown they can compete at the highest level. It's not really stealing a game. This is 2 very good teams. I don't really care about what the odds are at this point. The series is a toss-up as much of a toss-up as it can be at this point.
I'm excited. I hope they can show out in Game 5, and then I think if Indiana finds a way to win Game 5, again, I think it's very unlikely with the way that Oklahoma City has momentum on their side right now. But if Indiana finds a way to win Game 5 and they have a chance to win an NBA title in Game 6 in front of their home fans, the same way that they had that opportunity to get to the finals against the Knicks, I think you could be. Game 5 is the key to me. I think win Game 5, you win Game 6 as well. But again, that remains to be seen. Drew, I appreciate the conversation as always. And if this thing goes the distance, I guess you and I might be talking once again about all this. I don't know what might happen or what the schedule looks like between now and Game 7. But either way, it's been fun throughout this entire ride of the NBA playoffs. Would have never expected the Pacers to make it as far as they did. But I'm going to sit here and enjoy it and hope to see them come out with an NBA title, but who knows what happens. As always, a big thanks to Drew Rosenberg, one of our resident NBA experts that I like to have on the show. And he's been great to have, especially throughout this run with the NBA playoffs. Who would have thought that the Indiana Pacers would have been in the position that they are right now? So, all right, you guys enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Again, happy Father's Day to those who are fathers and watch this show, and appreciate each and every one of you all as always. And we'll be back next week to do it all again. Be sure to subscribe to the Hoosier on 3 on YouTube if you haven't already, and check out all the stuff being written and posted on thehoosier.com, our website with all of our lovely articles and writers, including Drew Rosenberg, who you heard from today. There's plenty of others that have been on the show from time to time as well. So until then, this has been another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by thehoosier.com.